Hey there, everyone in Earth Station One Land. Welcome to another episode. This is a fun one. We are going to be looking at the first season of the new version of Quantum Leap. That's right. It's not a restart. It's not a reboot. It's a continuation. And it is done its first season, and we're going to talk all about it. And we've got a great crew to talk about it tonight. Joining us once again, long time no here, Mr. Michael Falkner.
Hey, it's good to be back on the station. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been back. So
exactly, and it's nice. You're not talking about Doctor Who. You're not talking about Dragon Con. And
am I that predictable? I have a theme. It's
Well, exactly. You know, I was thinking about, do I want him to come on for this one, or do we want to save him for Mandalorian or Picard? So I know your wheelhouse, sir.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad I got picked for this one because Quantum Leap is near and dear to my heart, and I was very pleased with what we saw. So this will be fun to talk about.
It's interesting because you're the one who actually told me, because you knew I was a fan of the old series, and you were like pushing me to, dude, have you started watching the new Quantum Leap yet? It's like, no, I don't even have Peacock. Get it now. You didn't even give me a choice. You told me to do it. So it was awesome. Also joined, of course, from Be Geeks, Mr. Mike himself. Welcome back, sir. Long time.
Hey. Again, after seeing the list, I'm surprised I'm here this week, not next week. Considering
I know, considering your background too, your other podcasts.
Yeah.
It's cool though, because I love that we all have various interests, and we also have a love for Quantum Leap. And it's interesting because this one I wasn't so sure about. I'm not a big fan of, when they try to bring a story back, or they could try to continue it, because I'll give an example. When David Lynch brought back Twin Peaks, I don't think the new version of it that he did for a couple years back holds a candle to the original series. I was worried about that with Quantum Leap also, because Quantum Leap has such a deep place in my heart. And
when I saw the first episode, I felt, okay, this is a lot like what Universal did with the Jurassic series, with the second trilogy. Yes, it's a continuation of the original, but it's also a reboot into their own. This is a continuation, but it's a reboot. I'm absolutely digging the show.
Cool. You get Ben Song, you have a new leaper. What drew you, you've started mentioning, what drew you to this. Mike, we'll start with you. What did what drew you to this, and what's your history with the original series?
I was a diehard fan of the original series. And I mean, spoiler, no spoiler, the original series ended with Sam being lost in the realm.
Right.
Cool. Were they ever going to, that left you leave, with that, will they ever do a one-off movie years down the road?
Right. I know Scott and Dean were both pushing for that for a long time.
And then when Dean passed away, it's like, well, okay, there goes that. There's going to be no film to either give us one more mission or one more leap or a leap home. And then when they announced the series, it's like, all right, cool. And then that kind of faltered and then back. But when it finally, there's a commercial for the series. No brainer. I was hooked. I was sold.
No. Mike Faulkner, what about you?
Yeah, Quantum Leap has that special spot in my heart. It's one of the shows that I almost credit with saving my life at a point in time. Like, I'm going to date myself. I was in junior high school when the series was on the air.
God, I feel old now. Thank you.
Right? You're welcome. But no, I was standing in the line in the lunchroom, and I just recently changed schools, coming back to a school that I had left a couple of years before. So I really didn't have a lot of people to connect to. And I was just standing there in the line as it was winding its way around the lunchroom. And I was just humming the theme to myself, not thinking anything of it. And this girl who was standing next to me, who was in my same class, she's like, "You're a fan of Quantum Leap?" I'm like, "Oh, hey." Awesome. We're still good friends to this day. We made that kind of lasting relationship because of that. And so it was, like Mike was saying, it was kind of a gut punch at the end of the season when they're like, Sam Beckett never returned home. And you're like, but no, he's the hero. He's supposed to, ride in on, into the sunset, and
the happy ending.
Yeah, happy ending kind of thing. And we saw all the attempts and stuff, by Sam and Dean and Don Belisario to really get this thing rolling again. It never took, never really got any traction. And what really kind of piqued my interest with this one was that A, it was going to be a continuation, and B, Deborah Pratt was on board. Deborah Pratt has been championing Quantum Leap from day one, and so when that news came out that she's going to be involved and she's right there and mix it with it, I was like, oh, absolutely, this is going to be, at least the building blocks are there, and we're going to see if they can actually make it work or not. And I'm surprised that it actually it pulled off this kind of miraculous thing where only a few episodes in, they're like, yeah, you got a full season. And then halfway through, they're like, and you got a second season. Like, okay, that we're doing Quantum Leap again. This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting too, because when the show premiered, we weren't even sure it was getting a full season.
No,
it only had a half season order originally. And, the producers weren't even sure how they were going to even try to wrap it up in half a season. And, because there was so many different things, because what they did, how they progressed it out. And, they could have easily ended the story with the end of the first season very easily.
Well, and I know there was concerns going into the holiday break what's going to happen, because it was off air for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And usually with NBC, when a show goes off that long, it's a death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, with its return, it did well.
Oh, it got even more popular when it came back from the break, and it actually became one of the highest rated new series for NBC or Peacock. And I think the only other one that really beat it was Poker Face.
Yeah, so. and Poker Face was stream only.
Yeah, and that's really good. It's actually a really good testament to the show, because a lot of people don't remember that the original show was a half season, or a mid-season replacement in the first season. Only had eight episodes in that first season, and it was very, very shaky then. Like the first season almost was its death sentence. And then when it came back, like seasons 2 and 3 were hitting the high notes and really, really making this thing work. And then by season 4, and then leading into season 5, it was on the bubble. It was always on the bubble. It's being moved around the schedule, and NBC wanted to kill it, and it just wouldn't die. And the last episode was shot the way it was, because it was just, here's the end. You guys are canceled. Throw the title card up there. You're out. Because they had plans for the next season. And they couldn't capitalize on any of it. But this show, the continuation show, firing the way it is, where it's like, okay, yes, we're going, and NBC putting their muscle behind it, is so refreshing in the history of Quantum Leap. It's a testament to how
it's a whole different era now, though, too.
Yeah,
with a different management group as well. In charge.
Exactly. It's interesting though, with the new series, you get, it is a continuation / reboot. And you have, of course, Ben Song instead of, Sam
Beckett.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because in the old series, you only saw Al most of the time. You did get to see, Gucci and a couple other folks,
Mhm.
in a couple episodes. But this series focused a lot on the present time and the era. How do you guys feel it worked? Were you expecting that, or were you guys thinking you wanted more of a traditional, you know, basically Ben
Uh,
and, you know,
I didn't know what to expect going in. Like you said, in the original, we got it was Sam and Al. Every now
yeah,
and then we got Gucci. Um, every now and then we saw the holding chamber where the person who was leaped, their essence was, where the bodies are swapped, so
right,
to speak.
exactly.
Um, so I mean that was very little. So it was mainly, the original was mainly Sam and Al going through time. This, um, I guess it touched on my, behind this, being an audio engineer myself, working at a major theme park here in the deep south. Um, the being behind the scenes guy and behind the scenes junkie with DVDs and Blu-rays and streaming, whatever. I like the fact that we're seeing the leaper in his predicament, but we're also seeing what's happening on the other side and how that's affecting, because Ben was not the original leaper planned for this revival of Quantum Leap.
That was originally supposed to be
In the
Caitlin.
program, it was supposed to be
Yeah.
Caitlin.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the ensemble thing. Back in the 80s and 90s when the original Quantum Leap aired, like you were able to do kind of the Incredible Hulk or Knight Rider thing, where basically the good guy's traveling from point to point to point and doing a good thing and then moving on. And you could do that small cast. We're more of an ensemble kind of environment now, and I don't know that a very limited cast would carry a show very well. And so I'm glad they brought in all these different personalities and really show you behind the scenes what's going on. And I thought it was very clever of them to kind of allude to the fact that there's no waiting room this time around. That it's because that quantum entanglement thing they kept repeating throughout as a theme throughout the season. Yep. And then like the technology has evolved a little bit. It threw me off, kind of caught me off guard a little bit when somebody else walks into the imaging chamber and they can actually speak to the leaper now, and you're like, whoa, okay, wait, now technology's advanced. It's a new quantum leap basically for the new project. Let's roll with this and see where it goes.
yeah, I always found it kind of weird in the old series that Sam's body was still there and the other people who he leapt into were in his body, and they had to basically put them in a waiting room type thing. And I was actually really glad they didn't have to deal with that.
And that the dynamic that they have now actually was one of the big plans that they had for season 6 of the original version, because with that last episode, Sam leaps into himself in a bar somewhere that's kind of off the grid, really, and there's nobody in the waiting room, and the next leaps were supposed to be harder because there would be nobody in the waiting room for them to talk to and to get the intel from, to then go find him and figure out what was going on. It was supposed to be incrementally more and more difficult as Sam continued his journey. And we never got to see that. So I think that was actually a good carryover from those original plans.
And I've liked as well too, with some of the episodes, it's not just Caitlin that's in there guiding them. Ian's gone in. What's her name? Who's the security? Give me a second.
That was a Jen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she goes in. And even briefly, Magic goes in.
Yeah,
Magic does in the last episode. Yeah,
yeah, and it's like, and to see him go in is almost that look of, oh, so this is what the other side's like.
Exactly.
Was great.
I always found it was interesting too, because you had Magic, who Sam leapt into in the old series.
Yeah.
He was the main character that carried over into the new series. And, you had Al's daughter and you had Al's wife, but, obviously Dean Stockwell had passed away years ago. And it would have been great to, if somehow.
Well, a little bit of trivia about Janice Calavici, played by Georgina Riley.
Mm-hmm.
She was actually a guest on Be Geeks back when her and her husband were doing the Sawchuk movie about Terry Sawchuk.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great personality. I was so excited to see her name on the show. I'm like, I hope she's not just a one and done.
Mm-hmm.
And having her as a recurring has been so awesome. She was such a fun interview. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm glad to see this role for her.
Mm-hmm. I did like the supporting cast. I thought it worked really, really well. And I liked how they were not generic at all.
Mm-mm.
And, I think that made it even better for me because you had, each one was their own individual type character. And it's interesting because Ben was different than Sam in that Ben's memory was slowly coming back to him more than Sam's was in the first.
That may be the product of not knowing whether they were going to survive mid-season break or not. So I think that may have been rushed just to help get people in it sooner.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I think that was compensating for the mistakes from the original, where if they had pushed that more in the original season 1 or even first half of season 2, I don't think it would have been as much on the bubble as it was. Because it wasn't really until season 3 that Sam starts remembering things.
Mm-hmm.
Because the episode where he leaps into magic, the leap home part 2, that was season 3,
right?
And that's dealing with his brother, and there was the whole story arc over 3-4 episodes of dealing with his brother. And the memory flooding back like crazy. So, I mean, season 3 is where they finally let that go. I think doing that here was really, doing that earlier really helped, especially in today's age, really helped grab the audience quicker and hold them quicker.
Yeah, because the original Sam, I think, was a good avatar for the audience. Like, hey, I could also go out and do good in the world, and I could be just like him. And you can kind of put yourself in those shoes. But we've also kind of evolved as a TV audience now, where we don't want to just have an avatar to step into. We also want to be able to identify with the characters in some fashion. And I think it was a great move to make Ben more identifiable in that sense of he shows who he is. He's still jumping around and doing good wherever he goes, but he's also a person with a real backstory and a real personality. That's not just a shell that you put a new person into. And I think it really helped the dynamic of this show to really start kicking into gear, to have those experiences where he actually lights up when he sees somebody new that he recognizes from his past. Like, oh yeah, that's Ian. Yeah, I remember these things now.
Mm-hmm.
But then we get that reality in the final episode where he leaps into himself, and he's got to establish the first date with Caitlin, and he's still having to be guided through how to do it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. As most of us do with first dates anyway. So,
God, it's been so long I've had the first date. I wouldn't know what to do now.
Exactly. But it was interesting, and I liked, Ben was a very likable character right from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. You weren't sure what his motives were, but you liked, that, you liked him. He was a typical nice guy. And that, the very first episode was that was the bank heist, and in Philadelphia, and it was a great introduction, and he didn't have a clue, of course, who Caitlin was or what he was there to do. And it was, and so I found it fascinating, and I thought it was really, it set the table really nicely.
Which is kind of surprising that they actually pulled it off the way they did, because that was not the original first episode. They swapped it around because it worked better as a pilot, but the original pilot was the one that was what a disaster, the one about the San Francisco earthquake. That was supposed to be the introduction, and they didn't feel it was strong enough, and so they did a lot of rewriting on the fly to make that episode, the July 13th 1985 one, actually work as a pilot episode. And you can see the seams in it. It's got a typical pilot episode. Is this going to work or not? Especially some of the effects as Caitlin's walking in and out of the imaging chamber for the first time. But overall, the chemistry really seemed to work.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing you notice in this show is the chemistry, not just between Caitlin and Ben, but also between Ben with all the other surrounding characters,
Yeah.
and you had Caitlin and all the other characters, and you had characters like Ian, and then you had Jen and Magic, and then of course you had Janice coming in later. Janice was the big mystery. What was she about? And why did Ben trust Janice enough not to to help him come up with the computations and everything to for his plan? But
because because Janice found out something that was going to happen down the line to Addison, and she knew how he cared about Addison, which was Caitlin Beckett's character, or Bassett's character.
Yeah, Addison was interesting too, because you had rough and gruff Al, and now you have Addison, who is also a former vet, and it was just it was interesting. So, and I thought it worked really well, and that was the neat thing to do with it. And then you had the mystery of you found that there's another leaper in this.
Martinez.
Exactly, Martinez. And you had the evil leapers in the first series. I never saw Martinez as after the first time at first you were like stroking your beards going, is he one of those evil leapers or something? But it was interesting when Martinez leaped, he was the same color as Ben was. It wasn't, because in the old series, Sam was blue, but the evil leapers were red.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I loved that they hung a lampshade on that entire evil leaper thing. So that was one of my thoughts too. Was like, oh well, you've got Martinez bouncing around in there. So is he an evil leaper? Oh well, Ziggy is now supposed to be some sort of enemy to them. Spy. I was like, oh, are they gonna make this new Ziggy into Lothos? Was the computer from the evil leapers? And then they actually bring up the file on the computer, like, yeah, there's this weird misfiled thing that is signed off by Al Caladici that says we've encountered evil leapers, and then they just kind of toss it aside.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, thank goodness.
But for Ziggy to sabotage what was going on, because he's also controlling everything with Martinez in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was an interesting move. Okay, we're gonna have to do this blind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it was interesting
and that
too,
made it
because
fun too.
Because you had Janice, like, you can't trust anybody at Quantum Leap. And it started making think, oh, is Ian bad? Is Magic bad? Is Jen bad? Is Addison, who's going to betray everybody? And it ended up being the frippin' computer.
Yeah, and it was so fun, from the espionage point of view, like watching everybody start pointing fingers and like, oh, is it you? Is it you? Is it you? And then you start watching the characters as they start to process it themselves. Like Ian, for example, was, not sleeping and going through all these calculations and stuff. Like, how can I possibly turn bad? And you're like, okay, you're not the mole. You're not the bad guy, obviously. Unless there's something down the line that pushes you over the edge, you're obviously not the bad guy. There's character moments like that really help sell the characters back at the Quantum Leap project.
The one thing I did like that the original series didn't do is even if it was just for one brief part of an episode or crossover from one episode to the next, the leap into the future.
Yes.
Yes.
Because, you know, when I saw that, I'm like, you know, based on the original, everything went backwards. You couldn't go past the present time from the moment you leapt.
Correct.
Or to whatever the current time is at the base.
Mm-hmm.
But then jump so far into the future. It's like, whoa, okay. I wish they did this sooner.
Oh, of course.
Oh, this can happen. How's the past going to figure out what needs to be fixed in the future at this point?
And it was fun to see that, and I'm glad they did what they did with it, because again, going back to the notes about the older series, you know, one of the speculations for a potential season 6 was, you know, Al was going to go into the accelerator, and his first leap was going to be to the future, to a space station, as he's looking for Sam. And it's kind of like, okay, well, how do we, like you're saying, like, how do we do this? What is the calculus behind that to make that work? And I was really happy to see that it was, you know, Ian who pointed out the algorithm's not supposed to let you do this. You're here on a fluke, basically, and the accelerator keeps trying to pull you back because you're not supposed to be here. And I need to give you this piece of information right now before it succeeds in ripping you back into the string theory you belong to.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting though too, because Ben also went back to the Old West.
Mm-hmm.
And in Sam's theory in the original series, it was only his lifetime, you know, that he can go back. And I know there was one where he went back to the Civil War.
Yeah.
But that was a fluke.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, Sam's but Ben's wasn't. Ben just ended up
purpose. It was purpose. Yeah.
Because that's also where he met Martinez for the first time. So,
but I don't think that was in Ben's line of leaps to fix whatever. I think that was possibly something with Ziggy, to take Ziggy or take Ben and Martinez, have them meet completely outside of their lifetimes, so nothing would be affected if something was to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it plays with the same philosophy that they had in the original show. Like the original show always talked about how, you know, it was, you know, God or time or fate or whatever that was pulling Sam along on these leaps. And in this one, you got this you know, algorithm that Ben was kind of handed and said, this is how you're going to do it. And it was, you know, basically slingshotting him around on that image we saw. So I really wonder, like, who or what pulled him to the Old West to meet Martinez for the first time, because it's, again, outside of his lifetime, he shouldn't be there. Yeah, there's still a lot of unanswered questions there.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely interesting because you had all those unanswered questions even from this series, and they had, you know, the storyline that, you know, Ben was going to try to save Addison. That's why he was he jumped instead of her. Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting that we got that story resolved in this. And it was also interesting at the same time, is it resolved? You know, there's probably more to it, you know, because you did have Ian leap, you know, because Ian that's how Ben found out that he had to do it and everything.
Yeah. Well, and to have that one whole sequence where the one character goes, yeah, here's a sketch of the person who I saw inside me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Madge's expecting Ben, and it's Ian. It's like, okay.
That was a nice little, like, wrench. It was like,
this is a twist. This is a swerve. This is, and I loved it.
And the guy was such a good artist. He was able to do, you know.
Yeah. Well, with this series, I kept thinking back to, would the original format of just just Al or just the Leaper and the Observer, could that work today? Or
I think it could work.
Or is the ensemble that we have seen proven that this is so much better?
No, because I think, we wouldn't have known differently. I think we would have, accepted it that it was Sam and Al, that those were the two main characters. And you heard, Al talking about the other people, but you didn't need to see them. But I think it worked for this version of the show a lot better. And these people, you see them glimpses of these folks. You don't have a whole episode set in the present, and Ben is just like, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. It's all still focused on Ben's story.
It's a good balance, but I tell you, I would love 1 or 2 episodes next season where it's nothing but Ben and one Observer, and we don't see the behind the scenes crew at all. Well, we don't see the control room at all. I would love that as just an occasional nod to the original series. Just 1 or 2 episodes. That'd be it for me.
It'd be a good question as to whether or not that kind of format could survive, because I thought about that myself, and I kind of lean toward the ensemble really carrying things in this modern era. But I also recognize that, they could do just a 2-person, kind of show like we're talking about. They might have to work harder for it, but it's obvious the hunger is there for this kind of show, because the thing that really drew me into this and said this is going to work is the fact that this has the same heart as the original Quantum Leap. This is just about wholesome, good things happening to people because someone is willing to step up and do that, to carry the load. And the numbers, and the fact that this thing is succeeding tells me that even in this kind of cynical, darker sci-fi era that we live in, there's still hunger for this kind of thing.
Right.
So they may have to work harder to make a 2-person show thrive, or even for a couple episodes, but I think they probably could do it, because as long as they keep this chemistry rolling, this formula rolling, then people are going to tune in.
And I think it would be even more fun if there was an episode that was to come out on a day where the airing would be the same day as what an original episode aired, and they redid that script. But how would Ben handle it as opposed to Sam, and put the twist?
I almost thought they're going to do it with that Halloween episode.
Yeah,
because that was almost like, we're going to do the Al turns out to be the devil kind of show.
Yeah.
Instead, it ended up being Janice.
Right.
Which is
I think the other episode that they did that made me go back and look at the original series and say, I almost wish they did it back then too. It's the Groundhog Day episode at the nuclear base.
Yes, I loved that, because when they started doing the Groundhog Day thing, I'm like, okay, well, how long is he have? And they're like, you've got 5 iterations, then you're done. I was like, oh, okay, you put a spin on this now.
Yeah,
and he's got to solve it. And that was one of the things I really wish they had done with the Sam and Al era, was, a very similar thing. I agree with you on that.
It was interesting too, but I love that episode because you got to see it over and over, but each time from a different person's point of view. Mm-hmm. And Ben had to try to figure out who set the bomb, and it was really, really, really well done. And
usually I'm good about picking that type of stuff up. Oh, is this person? That one had me going. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to let this ride because I just don't know. I just don't know.
It was a fun episode. It was,
That's the one that just made me say in my mind, shut up and just watch and enjoy.
Mhm.
Don't try
I
and
was-
figure it out because you're
I was
not.
just waiting each time. Rise and shine, campers! It's Groundhog Day.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it was, and I like how they didn't pull any punches with this series. Ben leapt into male, female, black, white, green, orange. It didn't matter, and I they didn't hesitate with anything, and
They
I
didn't
like
hesitate in the original either.
no, not at all. I think in some ways I feel like Ben slept into a little more diverse than Sam did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know. I think the only thing I don't remember seeing, and I could be wrong, the only person I didn't see Sam leap into was an Asian person in that series. But he leapt into a black man, black woman, white man, Native American,
Yep.
Down syndrome,
Yep.
deaf,
yeah, rabbi,
yeah.
That was a fun one.
yeah. Boy.
They even put him into a chimpanzee. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
I mean, multiple.
that's very true.
Multiple versions of different states of handicap.
Yeah.
I think I want to say I don't think we saw anyone from the LGBTQ community, but then again, this was 89 to 93.
Yeah.
That wasn't a. It was just coming to the forefront.
Well,
I know there were stories involved because I want to say there was a story in regards to a person who Sam leaped into was dealing with a family member with AIDS, which was a big thing at the time.
Well, there's also one of my favorites, Running for Honor, where he leaps into that military cadet and he has to put Al in his place because it's well, is he gay or not? And Sam's like, doesn't matter, So they
Right.
leave the question open.
Exactly. I think that helped with it.
I forgot about that episode. So, I mean, I think we've gotten similar diversity. I mean, Quantum Leap was diverse. It was, when it comes to diversity, it was the Star Trek of the 80s from 80 into 90.
Mm-hmm.
It carried that diversity over, just like Star Trek did with the stuff that it broke the barriers with.
No, I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
I just think right now the diversity here is a little different, and I'm hoping we see more of what avenues they could go into with season 2, because I know there's still a lot that's being thrown at us as a culture that a lot of people aren't understanding, that I think this show can help educate some of that understanding more.
Yeah, it's the mark of good science fiction. Quantum Leap, the first 5 seasons, with Sam and Al, were very progressive for the era. And it held the mission of good science fiction, which is to basically turn the mirror of the human condition on us and say, this is what you are now.
Right.
Do you see it? And I think they did a really good job here too.
And that's one of the things I love about the new series with like Ian. They don't question, they don't focus on that at all. And he's the brilliant one. He's just, in a lot of ways, he's as smart as Ben is.
Right.
Maybe in some ways smarter. And it's pretty awesome.
I don't want to be that guy, but having done some research on the actual actor, come to find out the actor identifies as they, them.
Right. And
that's why pre-show, when we were talking about it, or maybe earlier, I started to say he, Ian, he did this, he did that. And then very quickly, they, them. Mm-hmm. Now, mind you, I'm older generation. I may be the oldest out of the three of us. I'm not sure. If not, I'm close.
I doubt it.
We'll talk after show. But it's
Faulkner's the old guy.
Right.
Well, if he's saying the original came out and he was in middle school, no.
Right.
I got him beat. I got him beat by at least 4 years. Again, after show.
Kids.
But I'm generation old enough that I'll grasp the pronouns. Just give me time, because I'm not accustomed to it. It doesn't come naturally to me like my daughter and the younger kids that I'm working with at work. Be gentle with me. I'll get there. So for me to correct myself and go, they, them, with Ian and the actor, it's progress for me. So, and I think for me, for Ian, that's almost the way, because they really don't broach pronouns with him or with the Ian character at all. It's always Ian.
Yeah. The
I don't remember pronoun labeling with Ian at all.
No, they didn't.
They didn't do it. The only time that they actually kind of even pointed at Ian's non-binary status was during Let Them Play with the transgender individual on the basketball team. And when the game was going on and Ian was able to join through the imaging chamber and cheer on, even though the player couldn't see it, that feel good moment.
Ian had a tie because Ian grew up in that area.
Yeah.
But we also see Ian's girlfriend.
Right.
Or ex-girlfriend too.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yep.
Not a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's I being the moderate person I am, yes, I lean a little more conservative, but I do have a lot of progressive liberal values. I really loved the Ian character, and I loved how Ian was presented to the limelight.
Yeah, it did the job of showing us that people outside of the binary spectrum, the typical male, female, and button down and everything, have a place, and they are smart and capable and can do everything that your normal people, heteronormative people can do. And that's what made me fall in love with the Ian character was, it's not pushing your face. Ian just exists as Ian should just exist.
Exactly. Yes. Ian is a great character. Just in general, I like Ian as much as I like Magic, as much as I like, all the others. I think it's pretty awesome. And that's what makes a good team. And I'm glad it was Ian who, in the future, who gave Ben the code.
Mm-hmm.
And so that leads into the next question I had for you guys. Ben's journey throughout the season. Did it work for you guys? Because some people I've heard and read were like, it was a little off kilter. Do you guys feel like it was a strong journey and that he got to the point he needed to get to?
Go ahead, Mike. I heard you breathe first.
he breathed first. You breathed first, Michael.
I breathed. I'm thinking here. I think a lot of people were expecting it to be Ben Song's journey because Ben Song is the traveler. And I think they're expecting that as the main character in the Sam kind of role that Ian is supposed to go on some sort of growth, quest. And he did to a degree, but I think really the journey was more for the ensemble, right? Because everybody had a point to play in trying to figure out this mystery along the way. And they all became a lot closer by the end. Like at the beginning, it was, very disparate kind of group. And at the end, as Ben is presumably leaping back home, they're all gathered around watching to see, is he leaping here? Is he done? They were tight at the end. They were done questioning each other and trying to figure out who was going to be the bad guy. They had all had moments of growth throughout the series. So I think that the answer to your question is, if you're considering just Ben, it was a journey. If you're considering the entire team, yes, it was very strong. It made these characters shine.
Okay. Mike?
I almost agree.
My God, really?
No, not almost agree. I do agree.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm trying to. I almost had a thought remembered before I passed it over, because Mike had breathed first, and I heard him start to go, and I didn't want to stop him. In turn, stop myself.
It's all about the breathing, man.
It is.
Breathe first.
That's what I get for being an audio engineer. I hear the minute stuff. I found it definitely a journey in a different aspect of, it's the whole teamwork. Well, like what was said before. We're seeing what we're seeing what Ben's doing with everyone behind the scenes. And instead of the journey of this being a personal journey of growth for Ben, we have Leaper X almost fairly quick into the series, like 3-4 episodes in.
Yeah.
So it's now, and then, Janice plays a immediate effect right from the start. So you got those two different subplots going of, okay, well, Janice is the bad guy here. And then you find out, no, she's a Calavici.
Mm-hmm.
She's actually trying to help in her own twisted way, because she knows about Leaper X that we just got introduced to. So it's, how do we prevent this Leaper X from screwing things up here? Because that's what Leaper X is doing, is trying to go after Addison, but finds out it's not Addison that's leaped, it's Ben. And he knows why Ben has leaped.
Right.
So
that's a good way to put it.
It's definitely a survival of the program.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you bring back a person who wasn't prepped to be the leaper, who became the leaper?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting too, because Ben wasn't trained for it. Ben was supposed to be basically where Addison was. He was supposed to be, the owl, and it was real interesting to see that happened. Okay, let's then get into the whole thing with Martinez, because that's a whole, I don't think that storyline is done. I know Martinez is done, but I don't think the storyline is done.
I don't think so either.
I think that's going to be season 2.
Yeah, you got a lot of operatives. They said that that he was only leaping because the government wanted him to do the cover up kind of thing. Well, those people still exist. I mean, I think we still have that one story thread with the senator that showed up, and Magic suggests something about trying to figure out if he could save their relative who died in a car crash or something like that. I forget the details, but that one senator who just spontaneously shows up at the project and wants to know what's going on. That kind of thing. I think there's probably still people in the background who are twirling their mustaches and how do we use this to our own benefit kind of thing.
Well, not just using it into their own benefit, because they feel that that Ben and crew might be actually damaging time instead of helping it. Mm-hmm. And they might be thinking they're doing the right thing, but that it's not, because I don't think Martinez thought he was the bad guy in this at all.
No. You know,
to take the line from Clone Wars, he's just a good soldier following orders.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good way to put it. And it was interesting that he worked that way. And that actually, I really think whoever sent, sent Martinez and whoever, corrupted Ziggy, or, do we have Ziggy back? That wasn't answered in this,
I want to say the last 2 episodes, Ziggy was still turned off.
Yeah.
But
so
I think,
are they done with Ziggy, or, that's a good question.
Am I remembering something that doesn't exist? But did we see at the end too, Ziggy start to glow a little bit in the final episode after Martinez was gone?
I don't remember.
And Sam leaps.
Ben
leaps. Hey, it could be Sam.
Okay.
Well, I don't know.
Like I said, it could be. If it didn't happen, maybe it's something I wish did happen, because I think that would be just as cool.
Well, I think they're handicapping themselves without Ziggy in some ways. So, I find it interesting that you have that. And I think Ziggy, I hate to say it's an integral part of the team. So, and helps them get data more easily than them having to surf the internet to find out what happened on that day. So, but hey, thank God we have the internet. Think about it. Al and Sam did not have that back then.
Right.
No, they did in their own way, because remember back then the military had the internet.
Yeah,
they had with Calavici, he had military ties to get that access for the program.
Well, the access was through Ziggy still, because Ziggy was the supercomputer that was getting all the detail. And so, it's kind of a different world now with it. So, we had that happen. Before we, start wrapping this up and predict what's going to happen next season, what were your favorite episodes? Let's start with Mr. Mike himself.
I think I have a really soft spot for Let Them Play, just because it does have some social commentary to it. And it portrayed that very well. I know, along with a lot of other things this season, I was I was guessing the entire time, and I leaned forward and verbally no when Ben leaped into the mental hospital, because from previous experience with Quantum Leap, leapers don't do well in mental hospitals. So I was like, oh no. No. And then we've already talked about the dynamics of Judgment Day, with him leaping to the future, and then having to navigate his own life, basically leaping into himself, which was always perilous for Quantum Leap.
Which was the worst first date ever.
Yes. And just the dynamics of what they attempted to pull off, with, okay, well, he and Martinez are fighting in the project, and they're trying to, he's trying to spin up the accelerator to blow up the project, and they end up taking their fight into an operational accelerator and both leaping again. And I was like, whoa. Okay, so the leapers have just leaped again. How does this break everything?
Well, it's kind of funny, because if you think about it, it's Sam who leapt in Sam's body, but it was Ben in Ben's body, but then it was also Martinez in Magic's body who went back to.
And part of me wishes they had not pushed the reset button, because I wanted my brain broken over that. But another part of me is like, nobody would be able to process that. They push the reset button, we're good to go.
Exactly. What about you, Mike?
Favorite episode is the one I talked about earlier, Leap, Die, Repeat. Episode 11, which is right before Let Them Play. The week before.
Yeah.
Because, we always had heard, if the leaper dies during the leap, if the person he leaps into, or they leap into, dies,
Mm-hmm.
they're dead.
Well, exactly. We found out with Martinez, because there is no
Right.
Martinez anymore. He's lost.
Yeah.
So now, but here's Ben dies. But now back into a different person. Same room. Same scenario. Or back starts off in the elevator again.
Yeah.
It's like,
But that's all
okay,
because of the radiation, I think they said was the reason that was happening.
but to cause that quantum loop was intriguing. And and I liked it just because of the fact that we didn't get that in the original series, and it would have been fun to see in the original series as well.
Mhm.
That episode.
How could they have done that back then?
Sure.
And it works so well now.
That episode too also has one of my favorite moments of the first season, and that is Caitlin Bassett and that just primal anguish scream when Ben dies the first time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Caitlin Bassett her debut is Quantum Leap, right? This is her first role, and she is selling it. And especially that moment, I was like, oh, whoa.
I mean, she carried the essence of the whole thought of person leaper die leaps into, if they die,
Sure.
they're dead.
No, very much so.
He dies.
Yeah.
She's horrified. She's screaming. He's not coming back.
He's not coming back. Exactly.
And then a minute later, he's back.
Yeah.
Where is he? Same time, different
person. Yeah, which was just awesome.
And she like, what?
Yeah.
For me, I love that episode. I thought that one was awesome. Actually, the two you both mentioned, actually, I loved, but also loved SOS, which was awesome because you also met, you met basically Addison's father in that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And played by a very familiar actor. So, which was awesome. And
he was Superman.
Yes, he was super. He was super in that. But I felt he sometimes shrunk a little bit too in that, so. But I found that episode was really well because you saw Ben, having to deal with military, but also a CO who was going crazy and having to try to circumvent it and helping prevent World War III at the same time, pretty much.
Well, and not only that, dealing with Addison's father, who has been the scapegoat for an event that they actually end up correcting.
Yes. I fully expected in that episode when I was watching it, Addison's character to change a bit because her relationship with her father changed. And because all she said, he was a quiet man, because he was drummed out of the military because of what happened.
Right.
And, he wasn't a father to her after this. But you saw how much in this episode, how much he cared for his daughter and everything. And I felt like that was going to completely change, because how your parents treat you changes you to the core in a lot of ways.
Right. But I think what they were expecting to happen with them changing the history here would change the history between Addison and her dad. But I don't think that change ever happened. Because being a war vet, that may have still overpowered anything that could have potentially been changed with this particular scenario.
We also have a lot of kind of timey-wimey stuff anyway with the people who work at the project. It happened in the original series as well. Whatever changes the Leaper makes along the way don't necessarily change the folks at the project. They're cognizant of the entire journey.
They're in a bubble of some kind.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like even Sam in the first season, he was able to influence his own life by getting Donna to become his wife. She originally had left him at the altar, and by happenstance through that leap, he was able to change his own past. And even though Al kind of hid it, Al also, he admitted later on that he had to hide that because he promised Donna he would.
Yep.
And so like they are somehow in some sort of stasis bubble, if you will, of like, we understand the entirety of the journey. The world is shifting around, because they were very clear about that in the season 2 premiere, with that one senator who Sam helped out, and the lead of the Senate committee, changed from this gruff old guy to this woman who's like, I seem to remember a Sam Beckett. I don't know why, but Sam's dealings had made that change, and Al recognized the change. He saw the shift happen, but the senator had no idea what happened.
Right.
Look at, even Magic says, Sam leapt into him.
Mm-hmm.
When he confesses this story, I believe, to Addison, Sam leapt into me, changed my life. Because originally Magic was supposed to die, along with Sam's brother. And they corrected that. Yeah. But yet we still know when Sam goes to a later time post Vietnam, there's Sam's brother still is alive now, but there's still not much relationship between Sam and the brother,
right?
Or the brother and the family, because of what went on in Vietnam.
So yeah, it'd be very interesting. I hope they explore that a little bit more next season. And that leads right in perfectly to, my final question for you guys before we wrap up. What do you guys want to see for next season? Are we going to see the return of Sam Beckett? Are we going to have a continuation of the story that, there's going to be other leapers that Ben has to deal with? Or is he just going to be now, since he saved Addison, is he going to be just leaping randomly? So many questions I just asked there. I want you guys to answer it right now.
I think there's going to be a leaper Y. I don't think we're done with that. I think whatever program there is. And I think timeline-wise, we're going to catch up to what that program is, especially especially since they say the government's involved, and the government's starting to get involved now in the current timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to eventually catch up. If we were to see Sam, I would love the essence of the character to be there, but not Bakula yet. But I would love, because we're at that stage where, unlike Ben seeing Martinez, I don't think Ben's going to see Sam. He may catch that this is not the way really this person's supposed to be. Maybe this is Sam. Maybe that person leaks out. Are you a leaper as well? Triggering that. And there may be a chase there to where eventually down the road it sets up, we see Scott Bakula as Sam possibly being pulled back out of the quantum realm. But I don't think we're going to see Scott Bakula yet. But I would love the essence of Sam to be teased.
Okay, cool. All right, Michael.
I was going to say the shoot for the stars was get Sam Beckett in there. Now I'm thinking that scenario through. I can see a leap where Ben pops in somewhere, and depending on the rules that they say Sam is still operating under, because that's kind of fluctuated a bit with what the future was supposed to hold for that original series. But back in the original series, leapers can only see each other if they touched, and so I could also imagine Ben trying to piece together, this guy's not quite right, or whoever it is, and then he actually reaches out for whatever reason, and we get the classic leap effect, and there's Scott Bakula saying, you're like, oh,
oh boy,
yeah. That would be the shoot for the stars speculation. I would really like to see, along with that kind of conspiracy stuff we've already talked about, like who's behind the scenes pulling strings, kind of like where some of our folks are from the original series. I know the actor who played Gushi has died, unfortunately. I know that Dean Stockwell is also not with us anymore, but the threads were laying like Donna was there, Sam's wife from the previous show, his daughter through quantum leap timey-wimey stuff. Sammy Jo Fuller was also working for the project. One question I asked generically on Twitter amongst the Quantum Leap fans was, the government doesn't just give up locations, like they keep a hold of real estate for a very long time. Who's minding the store out in New Mexico right now? Because the original Quantum Leap is still probably sitting out there in mothballs. It may be technology out there, or is that the same Ziggy? And does Ziggy ever speak in Deborah Pratt's voice? We don't know. Those are the kind of things I kind of would like them to point back to, along with continuing this whole thread of just doing good works. Continuing the traveling nomad kind of thing, and just, okay, I've got this to fix, all leading to something big, which I have no idea what that would be yet.
It'll be very interesting to see where it ends, because there's so many possibilities. And I agree. Maybe that's where in New Mexico, that's where the other leapers are from. And obviously it's from not far in the future, but it's from our future still, the other leapers, because Martinez was older than when we met him at the present. So, and I often wonder, when Magic went to go see Martinez, if that's what set him in motion to join up with that.
Could be.
So it'll be very interesting to see. So we're going to have to wait and find out, but we definitely would love to find out what you at home think. Please feedback at earthstation1.com. We definitely would love to do that. This is a good topic, folks, and this series has some legs on it now, and I have theories, but I'm not going to bring it up right now because it'll blow people's minds. And we've already talked for over an hour on this, and I think we can go another 3 at least. So it should be tons of fun. So let's take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment, and we will see you on the other side. Okay, YouTube folks, this is where we get into the wibbly wobbly and deep grass stuff. So this is going to be a ton of fun. And these questions are for both Mike and Mike. If you have Sam come back in season 2, do you de-age him or do you keep him older when they show him? Because, Scott's not a young guy anymore. He's in his early 70s now. So
I say keep him current age.
Yeah, keep him older. He was surprised in Mirror Image, the season finale, that he had developed white hair that he'd had the entire season. But they embraced the fact that Scott Bakula had aged over 5 years. So it would only make sense here to like, if he's been leaping around for 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking the same quantum realm that we're seeing in the MCU. We're seeing a different aspect.
Right
now that, I mean, who's to say he's not aging? At this point in time, I mean, what's going on with his body?
Right.
As well, is it still sitting in New Mexico?
Is it in stasis somewhere?
Yeah.
And the people because he's been leaping for 30 years, and that's another question. Al disappeared on him. Al died. He's on his own. He doesn't. It'd be kind of interesting to have Sam
he was
kind of insane.
He was on his own at the end of the series.
Yeah,
he went on his own.
Right.
Yeah, he chose to continue on that path. Yeah.
So I mean, he's out there blind at this point in time.
How does he know what he has to fix? Or is it just, common sense? Oh, wait, this is supposed to be this way. Or him trying to remember history, type thing.
Or is he actually leaping into other people, or is he just in limbo?
Yeah.
Or he could be living somebody's life. We don't know that. He could be living somebody's life for 30 years.
They alluded to the fact that he may be controlling his own leaps at this point too in mirror image. So he may leap into something, realize this is beyond my capability, leap to something closer to figure it out, or just I can't do this and leap out and go somewhere else. Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting. What would be your dream scenario for Sam returning?
If we get Sam returning, I almost wanted at this point in time to see Scott Bakula, if that's the end goal, in a season finale or leading into a season finale, if we know the series is not coming back.
Okay, so if it's not coming back, then you'll see
bring that into conclusion. If
Sam.
Not, like I said during the regular show, not the YouTube special we're on right now. I would love to see the essence of Sam.
Right.
But not Scott right away.
And they've talked about on this show too that one of the missions of the new project is to try to find Sam as well. So if we knew that the series finale was arriving, I would expect that they could write it in there of, okay, well, we've had this goal of trying to find Sam, and even if they don't directly, find him, it's just an accidental thing, like, oh, I touched his hand and there he is. The moment that Ben arrives home, because please God, don't strand another leaper out there. It could be that when the accelerator fires up and Ben is arriving for the last time. Well, then Sam arrives right next to him, and it's like, you done good, kid, and that's roll credits.
Yeah. And do you want it? Does it have to be played by Scott Bakula?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got to be Scott. See, I almost want it where if that happens, it happens maybe near the beginning of the season finale or series finale.
Mm-hmm.
That way you've got half an episode to catch Sam up on Al's gone, Gucci's gone. Here's someone you helped in meeting Magic.
Yeah.
Here's things that have happened since, and just do that little bit of a thing of reacclimating him to modern time.
Yeah.
Right.
Take him to go see Beth and hopefully reunite with his wife. And yeah.
But for me,
you would have to remember he had a wife too.
I want to see the return happen in a slightly different way than what you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Final leap. All of a sudden, they're expecting Ben,
and Sam comes out.
And Sam comes out.
And
then then there's like panic of where's Ben? Because it's shut down. Then all of a sudden it fires right back up, and here comes Ben.
It would be kind of cool. It would be interesting. Sam comes out, and then to get Ben back, Sam has to go into the imaging chamber to basically
disappear again.
No, to be the hologram. So, because he did that with Al. So,
and Ben's like, "Who are you?"
Exactly. Exactly. I think that might be a good end. Well, folks, YouTube folks, tell us what you guys think. How do you want to see Sam Beckett come back? It'll be very interesting to see, and I'm very curious to see what happens. And, are we going to get a continuation? Are we going to see the future with where Ian was? Nuclear winter, Ian, as we're calling him. So it'll be very curious to see if that future's gone because of the results of the season finale. And so I kind of think that is. That's the feeling I got. So definitely tell us what you guys think. Let's close up the show. Are you guys ready to get out of here? So that's going to wrap up another episode of the Earth Station One podcast. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Mr. Falkner, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. I have very few opportunities to just gush over Quantum Leap, and I appreciate the opportunity tonight to do so.
Oh, my pleasure. It's as fun for me as it is for you. So, this is kind of cool that we got to be able to geek out for a little bit. And this is what our show is about. This is why we've been doing it for 13 years. So it's part of the fun of doing Earth Station One is geeking out about topics that we love and like, and, or enjoy or whatever. But you know what? Each week we come back and, twice talk to you guys. It's pretty cool. Anything you want to promote, sir?
Oh, I will always take the opportunity to promote the Timestamps project on my site, Creative Criticality. Since 2014, I've been going through Doctor Who one episode at a time or one story at a time, starting from the very beginning with William Hartnell and the Unearthly Child. I'm up to Peter Capaldi's era now. Actually, his final season. I'll be doing Oxygen this week, leading up toward his regeneration, and then it's a straight shot through the Jodie Whittaker era, and if everything holds,
that'll go quick.
If everything holds, the Timestamps project will catch up to Doctor Who at about the 60th anniversary, possibly the regeneration into the 15th Doctor. So, yeah, that should be fun. You can find that and so much more of my pop culture ramblings at my website, Creative Criticality. That's at creativecriticality.net.
And then you're going to start doing Quantum Leap episodes, right?
I have honestly considered it. I've got a lot of things on a list of like, what can I do after Timestamps? Because it's going to go to more of a periodic thing, just like the show does. I'm like, well, Quantum Leap is sitting right there.
Exactly. Yeah. I think I see it in your future, Mr. Falkner. I definitely do. And Mr. Mike, thank you as always, sir, to be here. It's been too long.
It's been too long, but absolutely enjoyed it.
Excellent. Anything you want to promote?
Run 3 shows: We Be Geeks, Mighty Marvel Geeks, Wookiee Radio. All websites, take the show name, make them all one word, add .net at the end, or check out the We Be Geeks podcast collective, where you can also find Earth Station One.
Yep,
as a partner over there as well, along with finding Earth Station One on their own. earthstation1.com. I remembered. Wow.
Exactly. I'm in shock.
My mind failed me.
Exactly.
But yeah, WeBeGeeksPC.com is where the collective is located. Find us Twitter and Instagram. Just search the shows and we're there.
Awesome. A couple weeks ago, I had promoted a show that Judy and I were watching called Daisy Jones and the Six up on Amazon. Great show. We finished the series. It's wonderful. It's enjoyable. And it's only, I think, 8 episodes. Okay. So, it's really cool to watch. And basically, it's, kind of Fleetwood Mac inspired, but some other things inspired it too. But we were lucky enough to pick up the soundtrack, which is actually the album they're working on in the studio during the show. And it's all the music from it, and it's the original cast playing all the instruments and everything, and a ton of fun. It is. So you get to see the making.
That's a great concept. That's a great concept.
Everything. So definitely check it out. It's semi-documentary. Also, Mrs. Maisel came back this last week, and Judy and I, when we got home from South Carolina Comic-Con, binge watched the first 3 episodes because they put out the first 3, and then they're going to be doing weekly, 1 episode a week, and because I think they're only doing 9 episodes total, and this is the final season of Mrs. Maisel, and they're doing time jumps of all things, which is awesome because Mrs. Maisel took place in the late 50s, early 60s, and some of the time jumps already into the mid 80s. So it's pretty awesome to see the series, and it's a ton of fun. So folks, if you get a chance to watch any of those, there's so much quality TV out there, and we've already coming up with the end of Picard. We got the end of the Mandalorian. We got so much good coming up, and then I have to decide what are we going to watch next. So
I know the definite must watch for me coming up next is Strange New World in June.
That's true. It's awesome that
And
it's coming. Then we got Ahsoka
in August.
Yep. Oh, and that trailer is so fripping good. It's so fripping good. I still think Thawne's going to end up at the end of Mandalorian, but that's just me, because I think he's going to take out Gideon.
They're just the speculation I've been hearing alone from last week's episode, labeled Spies, of just the conspiracy theories of who's the spy, who's this, who's that. Mm-hmm. Oh, the armor has horns on her helmet. Gideon has horns on his helmet. In trying to piece things together, and it's like, okay, some of these theories I've watched rolling my eyes out.
Too much wrestling and WWE to know someone's going to turn heel, so it's okay.
Hey, I love watching wrestling.
So I totally understand that.
I do, but just some of the stuff coming out, it's like, yeah, no.
Well, we'll be talking all about it in the next 2 episodes of the show, so let's hold off on to talk about it till then.
But we're going to do our recap next week on Wookiee Radio.
That's awesome.
Not this week. This week we're still finishing our wrap up of Star Wars Celebration.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to the Earth Station One podcast. Always remember, we couldn't do this without you. Literally, we could not do it without you. If you want to support the podcast, please check out our Tee-Public store. Get some very cool ESO Network swag, including the new Darren Noel Wonder Warrior t-shirt. All processes from that go to charity, and folks, it's a great t-shirt. We've been selling quite a few of those, and it's just showing support for Darren, and he was taken from us way too soon. Also, remember, if you want to listen to our show before the rest of the world, why not join in the ESO Network Patreon? For as little as $1 a month, you can help support us here at Earth Station One. Check out the ESO Network on Patreon at patreon.com/ESO Network. We also want to hear from you. Please write us anytime at feedback@earthstation1.com. Remember, you can find Earth Station One wherever fine podcasts are found, including on Be Geeks. Now, Earth Station One could also be found in video format on YouTube. Please subscribe and tell all your friends about us. Like and subscribe. It's right here below you, folks. That's all you have to do. Click on the bell up at the top of the page, too. That lets you know when we have new episodes, which are now coming out twice a week, not just once a week, twice a week. On behalf of myself, Mike Faber, of course, Mr. Mike and Mike. It's awesome having Mikes here. This is just awesome. Thank you guys so much. Mr. Gordon's not here, because that would have been 4 mics, and I think that would just made the world explode, if anything, or the quantum realm would just go, it would have been awesome. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you here next time on Earth Station One. Hug your loved ones.
Or
have
Station
some
Mike.
fun. Exactly. I like that. That's the new name for the show. ESM. So, awesome. I'll talk to you all soon. Peace. And we are done. Poof. Yay.